Hey there, it's Fran Davidson from Psychic and Energy Work. Thanks for tuning into this video. It's a brief exploration about intuition versus spiritual downloads. That in itself is an interesting area because you could say that intuition encompasses all sorts of things. The act of intuiting could be defined as simply the act of opening up to the world of energy, to invisible phenomenon, be they seen, heard, felt, smelt, or tasted. Within that, though, comes the question, what exactly are we connecting with? What exactly is imparting information to us? Because in the energetic realm, and therefore the intuitive realm, there's more than one level of energy. Broadly speaking, the world of energy could be split into two groups, very broadly. One being the egoic level, the other being the spiritual level or the divine level. The egoic level is all around us. We ourselves are part egoic. We can't get rid of that level in ourselves or anywhere else. It exists. And yet so too do divine frequencies. You could argue too that human beings have two levels of soul, egoic versus divine, which is why sometimes we can be uber of integrity, we can be uber adult, mature, reasonable, grounded, objective, rational, if that's the way to say it. And then at other times we can be incredibly subjective or limited, pessimistic, all sorts of things. I'd argue all of us swing between these dynamics on a regular basis, especially if you live somewhere crazy like Sydney. And yet, intuitively, energetically, just because something is popping up doesn't mean it is spiritual or truly only spiritual or as spiritual as it could be. Broadly speaking, the world of energy is like a huge brick wall that goes up, up, up into the sky. To which there is no end. The lower down that wall you go, the more egoic and therefore the heavier energies get. That doesn't necessarily mean they get, should we say, nasty or evil or those sorts of words. They can. But egoic self and therefore egoic levels, they are more concerned with themselves than perhaps the holistic health and the holistic good that is created by doing whatever they do. And so essentially the egoic realm is flavoured by a level of selfishness that is slightly skewed towards that or who is emitting those vibes or those behaviours. So, therefore, intuitively, we can certainly sense vibes, beings, dynamics that are more at that level than just universal or divine, spiritual, those sorts of words. I'd argue the word spiritual, it points to, again, holistic, that which is for the holistic good. Therefore, it is integrity in the purest sense. It's a dynamic or a stance that is concerned for the health and the good of all, not just human beings, but also nature, planet, air, but also the spiritual realm, as in the intuitive or energetic realm. And so the higher up that brick wall we go, the lighter the energies become. And this is where it starts to get really interesting around this question of, is it intuitive? Or is it spiritual? Or more importantly, is it intuitive and spiritual or not? What I'm not trying to say is intuitive is different to spiritual. What I'm trying to say is that intuitive can mean spiritual or egoic. Probably the best way to say that is and or egoic, because both realms exist all of the time, all the way around us as well as within us. It's not so much that they don't exist, it's more which level are we allowing to influence us or assist us most of all. The dare at any moment is, of course, to make sure that the right level of self is driving the bus. And so therefore spiritually and intuitively as practitioners, but also as just human beings who can receive or pick up things intuitively. The job is to make sure that whatever we connect to, it is spiritually inclined, and therefore, again, the most likely to be oriented towards the good of all, good outcomes that are holistic in a very real sense, rather than just concerned with what I, the individual, can achieve, have, own, control, know, it's all, and all of that stuff. What I've learned through time is that the best way to sense the difference between that which is egoic and that which is divine is through the use of gut feel. Every vibration has a level of energy, a resonance, a feeling that comes with it, whether it's called a feeling, whether it's called an attitude, an atmosphere, a mood. Yeah, it's a sensed, felt state. And this is where, in terms of intuiting, that sort of information or awareness can become really useful, because at the end of the day, the spiritual realm, and therefore divine guidance, divine assistance, divine beings, messages, whatever you're dealing with, that is more soul level, universal level, for everyone's good, that always carries with it a very, I would argue, a very palpable sense of it is okay. It is a place, or it's a resonance that is, it smacks of peace, of harmony, of it is right. On one level, that too, all of those descriptors could be quite subjectively interpreted by any one of us. And yet what really makes that as a definition come home is the fact that the egoic level is always coloured. It always carries with it a certain level of loudness. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's extremely imbalanced or, over the top. It can be. But more, there is always a tension in the egoic level. There's always a push, a pull, a negative, a pessimistic perspective that comes through with guidance that is intuitive but not spiritual or divine, soul level. There is also the other attribute of the egoic level is its tendency to always manifest in a way that is more, and I'm never quite sure how to say this, whether it is polar or bipolar. I think it would be bipolar, but I'm not using that as the medical term. By bipolar, what I'm trying to suggest is that the egoic level often, when it is too loud, when it is being honoured too much, it always operates from with only two perspectives in its awareness: good, bad, right, wrong, black, white, on, off, hot, cold, when of course reality is far more than that. It's all of the continuum that exists between those 2 points. And that is the world of spiritual intuiting, because spiritually there is never ever only, shall we say, a negative reason, and therefore a negative or negative or pessimistic explanation for what's going on. There is always also a very good reason. And spiritual guidance will always get you that level of explanation, not just it is bad, they are wrong, nothing is happening on a negative level. The egoic level can be very much about those sorts of terminologies or presentations. It can also be very much a place that is about judging and labelling. Not because spiritually there are no labels, there are, but those labels are placed in holistic surrounds, explanations that are divine and therefore spiritually channeled, if that's the way to say it, or come from a spiritual, truly spiritual source. They never just give adjectives, good, bad. They never leave a client not understanding why something is going on. They always help the client place the good reasons for why things occur, whilst also dealing perhaps with some of the more difficult or challenging, maybe even negative attributes of that dynamic. The issue of intuition versus spirituality is also important when we're learning to develop. Simply because, hello again, the world of energy, it's full of different frequencies. It's full, therefore, of, you could say, energies or even beings that are here to fulfill their own goals as opposed to necessarily representing universal goals. Even here, what I've run through just before about the fact that on the egoic level, there is always a tension. There is always a push-pull, a negative, a pessimism. There is always a sense of, that's not quite everything. And if we are intuiting correctly, if that's the way to say it, in other words, if we are referencing to divine guidance, we will always get the reasons for that. We will always be given a prompt that is about, okay, so whilst that energy might be saying this, this and this, yeah, I'm still getting cues, whether they be visual, audio, felt, smelt, or tasted. Yeah, and therefore within that, even I just sense that's not quite all of the definition. That's not quite all the explanation. Those sorts of experiences are simply the universe's way of saying, hello, there's more to this if you want to access it. There's more to this that will make sense, that will help people heal, that will clear energies that are stuck or egoic or out of balance, and will help everything back to the fullness and the goodness that they actually can be in if we all give them the chance to be. So I hope that helps. How do you access divine energies? There are so many ways to do that. At the end of the day, cut yourself healthy time out, in amongst nature. That doesn't mean be uncomfortable in those moments, but it does mean use fresh air, use nature. That doesn't necessarily mean going bush, it can, but it can just be, head to the sea, head to a park, head to somewhere where in looking at that view, in enjoying that moment, you're able to say to yourself or remember, life's okay, I'm pretty lucky. The other way to do this is to actually consciously choose what level of energy you want to represent, and therefore you want to be surrounded by and guided by 24/7. Yes, the egoic levels exist. Put your focus on what you do want, not on what you don't. And lastly, use your breath. Breath out through mouth, and a remembering of the fact that what you want to do is be divinely guided. And by that I mean perfectly guided in a way that leads to long-term health, wellness, peace, success, whatever that includes for you. The more you know that the divine is real, the more you reference upwards to allow it to drop in. And the more you let go of the dynamics you're in amongst from time to time from a well-being perspective, balancing out perspectives, the more likely you are to intuit and notice yourself intuiting more divine energies than not. The only last point I'd say is that intuition, of course, we can consult with intuitive practitioners. If at any point as a client you sense that that's not the whole explanation, if at any point you sense, that's not making sense to me, can you explain it from a different angle? If you ever have questions of a practitioner, make sure to ask them, because by doing that, you're helping them to check what they're getting, but you're also inviting them to go higher again to the degree that that is possible, if not only to affirm that what they got for you to begin with was divine, was accurate. Use your breath. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it makes sense. If you have any questions, please contact me via the website www.psychicandenergywork.com.au. All the very best to you. Travel well. Yeah, enjoy your divine guidance.